In Central Oregon. Welcome to the Biz Bros podcast. My name is Kyle Nelson. I've got my co-host here, Mr. Eli Libby. And lately, we have been diving into some amazing interviews with some great guests. And we've also been really getting into guests talking about the power of podcasts for businesses and how they can kind of transform your message as a company and really be able to provide value to potential clients and clients. So today, we're excited. We have Tim Bornholt. He is one of the co-founders and partners at the Jed Mahonis Group, and they work on app development, software development for their clients, custom mobile softwares with emphasis on back ends. He also has his own podcast that he hosts called Constant Variables, a show that explains how mobile app development works to people who don't like technical jargon. That would be me.
Sign me up.
Tim, welcome to the Biz Bros podcast. We are stoked to have you here.
Kyle, Eli, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man.
Awesome. This is going to be a good talk. Everything we've kind of the intro definitely is perfect for the podcast. We're super excited. Audience is going to love it. So kicking things off, give us a little bit of background on who you are, kind of what you've built, and then we'll jump into the meat of the podcast.
Before I jump in, I'm looking at your guys' setup there, and I'm just drooling because it looks like you got an amazing podcasting setup going on. So kudos on that.
We're a video production company, so this is when we can actually have some fun.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's nice when you can flex those muscles and be able to be like, do I really need a $600 switch? Yeah, I do. Do I really need these boom arms? Yeah, I do. It's
That's funny.
Yeah. So my name's Tim Bornholt. Like you said, I've been doing software my whole life, really. I built my first website when I was in first grade, and I've just been cranking on it ever since, really. I call myself an accidental entrepreneur. My business partner, who was my best friend in high school, he approached me right when we were graduating college, and I was set to work in TV production as well. I worked at the CBS station in town, and I was going to go get a job up in northern Minnesota, working my way up through the small market stations. And before I accepted a job, I had a conversation with my friend from high school, and he's like, this app development thing isn't going anywhere anytime soon. We should, you should do the software side of things. I'll do the business side of things, and let's just see what happens. So 9 years later, here we are.
Wow.
That's awesome. So
first website, first grade.
I was going to say, I honestly don't think I knew what the internet was in first grade.
I
swear.
Give us a little bit of give us some background on that. What was the website? How did it look?
It was great. It was all about the Nagano Olympics.
Okay.
The 98 Winter Olympics. It was my first website was called Tim's World, and it was hosted on GeoCities, if you remember that wonderful platform back in the day. And my biggest website that I built growing up was called That's Unpossible, which was a tribute site to Ralph Wiggum. It was one of the largest Ralph Wiggum website, one of the biggest Simpsons websites on the net. And if you look up any picture of Ralph Wiggum, basically on Google image search, I probably traced it.
That's crazy. That's awesome. So, accidental entrepreneur, that's really cool. So what do you guys really specialize in at your firm? What is it that you like? What type of clients do you work with? What's your specialty?
Yeah, we work with all kinds of people that want iOS and Android apps built. It's anywhere from startups to Fortune 500 companies. We do everything from strategy to design and development, the whole kit and caboodle. And so, some clients need the whole thing, and some clients just need us to come in and knock code out.
Yeah, exactly.
Nice,
wow, that's really cool. Where did the passion for tech and website building and app development, where did that come from? Where was it?
Yeah, I think it's just, I've always been very curious about just how things work. And I think that curiosity early on really channeled itself through technology.
Okay.
We got a computer. My dad worked for Seagate, which is a hard drive manufacturer. And we good. No, down with Western Digital, right? Early on in my life, my dad had computers in our house the whole time. And instead of sitting around playing games, I was always curious, what does this button do? What does this thing do? So it's just a lot of curiosity. And with web development, there's nothing better than that back in those days, because you can do it today. You can right click on any website and click view source and pretty much see how they're doing and what they're doing. So that's really how I learned, was just a lot of trial and error clicking around.
Wow. So just naturally turned into, like you said, accidental entrepreneur, and just kind of happened.
Just like that.
That's cool. So you're a podcaster yourself. You've got a couple podcasts is what it sounds like. But your main focus is Constant Variables. You want to maybe share with everyone kind of what you guys go over and kind of the kind of guests or topics that you guys have?
Yeah. So Constant Variables, like you said, is really a show born out of a lot of conversations I've had with clients and people that want to build mobile apps, but really don't know where to get started, don't have an interest in learning what an API is or what anything else is with technology. They just really want to know the fundamentals. So that most of our guests lately, with any show, the show evolves over time. And it started out with a lot of those kind of evergreen content episodes where you just talk about a topic that's not really going to change all that much. And then we've pivoted into a lot more of interview style shows where we just talk with people that work with apps in one way or another and just pick their brains and see what kind of knowledge we can transfer over to our audience.
Wow. That's interesting. And what, between the two buckets, between the evergreen content and the guests, which have you seen more valuable and maybe more receptive to your current audience?
It's really, I found that you really need a good, healthy mix of both to pull it off. Because some people just want to have, just me talking for 10 minutes about a certain topic, and the other side of it is you need to have those hour-long interviews with people that are more known than you in order to drive their audience into your show. So you kind of need a good mix of both, I've found.
Yeah. That's
and then
totally true.
The other podcast you have is with an Olympian athlete, right?
Yeah, so that's CT Run. It's me and now a very good friend of mine, Carrie Tollefson. She ran in the 2004 Olympics, and we basically just interview elite athletes and other kinds of runners and just stay on top of the running world. Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's really cool. And how did you get connected with her? Was it something that maybe came from the first website? I mean, I know we're talking about Olympics on the first side. Is there a correlation between that? Or?
I got connected there with my high school theater teacher. Her dad owns a company that times marathons. Like they do like Boston, New York, Twin Cities, kind of all the ones. And he knew Carrie through the running world and thought, I want to start a show. And so it was originally a YouTube series. Way back in 2010, I guess that's 10. That is way back. But we kind of pivoted into a podcast when I had a kid a few years back, because it's just a little easier to edit a podcast than a full-fledged video series. So as you guys know.
Yeah. Well, nice, man. So let's dive in a little bit about. I know a lot of times you'll talk about that evergreen content of an episode, and we always kind of have this balance. We try to have guests on that talk about evergreen. Content that we can kind of provide to our clients because we do consulting as well. And, and there's also this other thing that we're talking about, like interviewing guests, which, hopefully that brings value. And we're pretty picky with our guests. We like to make sure that they kind of align with, our message and how we do it. So, what are your thoughts more? I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but what are your more thoughts on evergreen content and like how to like come up with that content so you're not just like regurgitating somebody else? Because I feel like that's what a lot of people have a problem with. Totally.
Yeah, I found that the thing I've been doing most recently is when I'm in a conversation, just a prospecting conversation or an early on conversation with clients, whenever they ask me a question, I write it down. And those tend to be the best fodder for those evergreen content, because if one person has that question, that a ton of people are going to have that question, especially if it's one that kind of is framed in a different way or thrown a different perspective than what we've approached it before. That really tends to resonate well when you're coming with evergreen content.
Totally. Wow. Yeah, I agree. It's a great point. Kind of write things down. That's how you're getting your topics. It's really cool.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of use our podcast for like different tactics. It's like either to hopefully gain listeners to follow us, to build our authority in the space.
Yep.
But we've also gotten clients because of someone listening and they're like, hey, or we have actually got clients of guests.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, I didn't notice what you guys actually did outside of Biz Bros. I want to work with you. So that's been actually pretty cool too.
Totally. It's kind of a long tail approach to attracting sales. It's a very long.
Oh yeah. You really can't expect podcasting to be a rainmaker immediately. It's definitely a long tail game.
Yeah. Wow. Plus it's fun.
Yeah,
it's kind of one of our creative outlets.
Yeah, it totally is. You get to talk to cool people.
Yeah, you got an ego like me, and I just wanted to hear me talk.
Here we go. Here we go.
We're all in the same boat, right?
Right. So yeah, that's kind of how it fits in our business. And I know that do you talk on your podcast? Do you talk a lot about JMG. Can we just say JMG? Is that kind of how you guys put it sometimes? Cool.
Yep.
Do you guys talk about the company a lot, or is that like the brand behind it, or is it like loud? Because we don't talk about our company too much in ours. But how's it work for you?
Yeah, we only really mention the company at the very end when everyone's already turned it off anyway. So, I think for the most part, the podcast, people tend to find it. They go to our website, and then in our top, we're reading about and projects and all that stuff. There's podcasts there, and that's where it seems like a lot of people find it is just coming from our website. So in one way or another, they know about.
That's cool. And how's the podcast? Has it affected the business? And you still there? I think we lost you for 1 second. Cool.
Still here.
How has your podcast propelled the business forward? Have you gotten leads from it? Has it been successful? I mean, what are some takeaways from doing the podcast?
Yeah, we haven't, I wouldn't say we've had direct leads come from it. With just app development in general, there's not as many people looking for apps as opposed to videos, so it's not been a huge maker from that front, but we have had people where if we're courting somebody as a client, they'll go and check out our stuff, and then they'll find our podcast and say, the reason I picked you was because I, listened to a couple of past episodes and you really seem to know what you're talking about. And so it's more of that kind of just an add-on way to get people that are already kind of in the sales funnel.
Yeah, it's a good tool, nice little tool to throw a podcast episode to somebody. We'll do that sometimes too. If people are just kind of picking our brain about things, say, hey, before we have a conversation, listen to this episode. Yeah. And then, take some notes if you have any questions.
Kind of builds the credibility too.
Yeah. So the whole meat of this conversation, I don't really think we ever really talked about what the actual topic was. And it was the power of podcasting for businesses. We kind of just jumped right into it naturally. It is really powerful for businesses. Like we said, you can have a voice, you can have a personality behind the brand, you can get to know the founders of the company or whoever may be one of the leaders. And it's just good awareness around your company. But there's some pitfalls with podcasting, right? I mean, there's things that kind of might get in the way, and some things that companies should be aware of. And I know you've touched on this before. What are some of your thoughts on kind of pitfalls and what companies should be aware of with podcasting?
Well, I think podcasting in particular, I think people that consume podcasts expect things to come out on a semi-regular basis. Yeah. So one of the biggest pitfalls is just the time commitment required to do podcasting. It's a lot different than just writing a blog or so many other like just social media and things like that. You have to actually take time to find guests and then build the research around them to make sure that you know what you're talking about when you talk with them. And there's that kind of a thing is the biggest pitfall, I suppose, is just making sure that you're aware of all the time constraints that come around with podcasting.
That's true. There is a lot of time commitments.
Yeah, we've had hiccups throughout the years.
Yeah, being consistent is the most important thing.
It's hard. It's really hard. Well,
yeah.
So every time we're inconsistent, we just call it a new season. Once
we started up.
But hey, that's okay, right?
We're
only human.
Yep.
Well, yeah.
So, with podcasting, our podcast in the beginning was called the e-commerce buzz, and because our niche with photo and video is e-commerce, is what we do. But we kind of changed it. We were like, okay, we can't talk about e-commerce all day long. Like for us, it's just not.
It's going to become pretty mundane.
It's mundane. It's like, and if you can't like stick with like what's trending, like that consistency of like being able to want to be the first to talk about it. But it's important just to get started. So. When you got started with your podcast, what was the pinnacle of why you did it, and like how do you I know you talk about like getting started with podcasts for other companies too. Like, what are your tips for people to kind of get started and kind of like creating that vision for it?
Yeah, I've found that before I really jumped in, my first thought was to plan out at least 10 episodes and have a roadmap of what conversations I wanted to talk about and what things I wanted to go over. Because again, if you just kind of jump in with 4 ideas and you launch this big campaign and then you're like, oh crap, I've run out of steam, that could be
like throwing darts at blind. You're just like kind of
pretty much. So yeah, I think that's probably the first thing I did was just get 10, like we started with the evergreen content because nobody's going to want to come onto my podcast with no one listening to it. So we figured at least get some just content out there that people can say, okay, they know what they're doing and they can make a professional show. And then you kind of start going after the interviews and building it that way.
Yeah.
So if you were to like wrap up one actionable step for an audience, our audience, is it to plan out that strategy, plan out those first 10 episodes, really get a good grasp of who the guest is, do the research, understand the topic? Is that kind of the one big actionable step?
Yeah, that is one big actionable step. There's with several sub steps. It really is just coming at it with, knowing how you're going to, you can produce it yourself. I mean, you can edit it yourself. There's so many tools out there now that make it so easy to get started, but you at least need to know what you're going to be talking about, and having a little bit of a roadmap will really help you with that process.
I think that's a great point. What are your thoughts on quality of the production?
I was going to say, what do you think about quality versus consistency and quantity?
Yeah, I'm this weird. Yeah.
That's why you guys work well together. It's
exactly. Oh gosh. But yeah, so a little bit about the quality of the podcast. What do you think? Because I know that there's influencers out there. Let's just run with like Gary Vee.
Yeah.
He is all about just do
content.
It. Get out there, get the content, keep it rolling, keep it consistent. Whereas a lot of the people are production quality, set up a nice production, make sure that the audio sounds good.
Audio is the most important thing.
I mean, it is. Yeah.
I would agree. Because there's there's a lot of different ways to approach any problem. Like just as a computer scientist, it's like when you fill out your work, you're in homework with math class, and they tell you got to fill out you got to show your work. The reason you do that is because there's a million ways to get to the end solution. So when it comes to the quality versus content, I mean, at this point in 2021, it's like table stakes to have both, really. And I would say that it kind of depends on what style of podcast you're going for. Because if you're going for an NPR kind of produced story with multiple interviews interwoven, it's going to sound like crap if you record it with your tin can microphone setup. But, but at the same time, if you spend $8,000 on a podcasting setup and you have nothing to talk about, then what's the point of spending that? So I would say that if you at least have the content down, you can start small, get like your iPhone, record with whatever you've got around you. And then as you start to see value and some returns on the investment, then go out and spend $150 on a Blue Yeti microphone, and go out and get like some of the extra stuff that'll ramp you up a little bit here and there, and just kind of grow from there.
It's a great point. Create some validation, and then
happy medium.
It's like, you
don't have to go overboard. Luckily these days, it's like you've got a great mic in your pocket if you know how to use it, and you can easily go on Fiverr and get a nice podcast logo and throw your podcast on Anchor, and it's everywhere, and you got a worldwide podcast in 2 days. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but then it, follows is the actually having good content.
Yeah.
That's what's going to get people following you. If you have, at least somewhat good audio, that content's super important. That's the nice part about having guests, is the content kind of comes to you. It's like people have talking points, and as long as it kind of aligns with your vision. What's some of your favorite things about podcasting? Like aside from business, like what do you like about podcasting?
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is when you have a podcast, there's no other, your voice is going directly into your audience's ears. And there's no, like with video, you can get distracted with obviously the visual component of it, and people just put audio as a second fiddle to the video.
Right.
But with audio, it's like your voice is getting pumped directly into your listeners' ears for an hour a week, or however long your podcast is. So having that direct access, it forces people to like paint mental images, and they're just more engaged. And so I think that's probably my favorite part, is like, I think all the podcasts that I listen to, I feel like I know the guests or the hosts of those shows very intimately. And even though if I went and saw them on the street, they'd have no idea who I am. But I just love that about podcasting.
That is really cool.
It's cool to.
What about you, Kyle? What do you like about it? Pinpoint one thing.
If I pinpoint one thing, it's the people that we've met. And like experiences that we have. We one of the reasons why we do podcasting outside of the whole branding thing is to learn. We try to be sponges and try to gain something from every person we have on. And I think collectively, the people that we've had on, it's changed our views with our business.
Yeah.
And like I would even argue like certain things in our lives, it's like changed like the way we do things, like our behaviors, just from like a 30-minute conversation. It's kind of mind blowing. It's just, you never know who you're going to talk to and like, what they're going to teach you. Because we go from like metaphysical, like brain, heart, neuron stuff all the way to like entrepreneurs, business, like in the grind. Here's tactics on how to make more sales. So we really just have guests that that's who we are as people. And we're trying to create podcasts for people like us who kind of have that good range of balance in their life.
Exactly.
What about you? No, go ahead.
So I was gonna I completely agree with that, and I think it comes down to, you can tell what podcasts, like the hosts that genuinely care, they'll do a little bit of research and kind of have an idea of where the conversation's going to go. But then the best podcasts are the ones like this, where you're like, you ask a question off script, or you think of something where it leads you down a path and you just learn something new, and it's that intense curiosity that makes hosting a podcast very enjoyable.
Yeah. I mean, we had that one podcast that someone did a guided meditation with us, and we did not know it was going there. It was talking about like leadership and resilience, and she's like, "Hey, we're doing a guided meditation.
So
Get
close
ready."
your eyes.
We're like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
Hopefully there was no like buffer right when they asked to say, we're going to take just a 10-second thought, and then they cut out, and you're like,
Yeah, I know. Yeah, from the listeners, I'd be interested to see the data. Like, is it still going? Do they fast forward? Do they pause and they jumping out? Yeah.
Or if you have the auto time shrinking thing on your podcasting app, where it's like, all right, we're going to take 30 seconds. Okay, now we're done. Let's move.
Yep.
5 minutes later.
Yep. Exactly.
How about you, Eli? What do you like about podcasting? We're just having a little conversation.
In general, I like podcasting because it's long form. You can listen to it and you can multitask. That's what I like about podcasts in general. But for our podcast, I like being able to be the kind of the middleman or the platform that can distribute somebody's message or our own message.
I like that.
So we can create an impact for our audience. They can maybe pick up a little nugget that they didn't have before, make their day better, learn something new every day. That's what I love about podcasts.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's kind of like our job, right? To like be that
totally
mediator to like deliver.
Exactly. What do you have a question? I got something kind of different.
What podcast do you listen to these days?
Yeah.
I feel like a bad podcasting host, because I used to get all my podcasting listening in while I was out for runs, and now I don't get a whole lot of running in these days. But I'd say the ones that I really listen to a lot, embarrassingly enough, I listen to Steve Austin's podcast, the professional wrestler.
Didn't know he had a podcast. I know he is.
If you're into like old like 90s 2000 era wrestling, he interviews all these people, and it's like they talk about all the backstage hijinks and things they did. It's hilarious.
I was a huge fan. You'd like grab the beer,
yes,
and just like crowd would go. It's like this. As a kid, you're just like, whoa, this dude's crazy.
Yeah.
Like him and The Rock.
Wow, that is cool. Tell us a little bit more. Go ahead. Yeah, one more.
No, I guess I probably shouldn't just leave on Steve Austin, because then I'd sound like a total goon. I think my go-to one lately has been How I Built This. The Guy Raz podcast is there's so many good stories. The back catalog is amazing. I listened to I churned all the way through it when I ran an ultra marathon a couple years ago, because I was training so much I could just put podcast after podcast. So and it's just so inspirational as business owners to just hear all these stories. So
and he's such a good interviewer.
Yeah,
like he knows how to get the questions and get to the core of like what the journey really was to get there, and like where the company's heading.
100% agreed. Yeah.
Before we wrap up, tell us a little bit more about kind of blending a passion with craft beer and scratching the own niche to create an app.
We saw that.
You got two passions.
Tell us about that.
Yeah,
about
give us just a quick little synopsis of what that is.
I figured some Oregon guys would like some craft beer. So my wife and I wanted to try to get to every brewery in our state. And there was, at the time we had this goal, there was like 40 breweries in the state. So I had a spreadsheet going, and I thought, this is dumb. I'm an app developer. I could just make an app and it'd be way easier to track all this stuff. So I built that, and then I thought, well, maybe somebody else will like this. So I put it up on the App Store, and I think right now we're up to like 7,000 people that have the app, and it's pretty cool. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
cool.
we
love it.
We moved to Bend, Oregon last year because it's the mecca for we have 30 breweries and our population is 100,000 people. So it's like a place to live for craft people that are into craft beer. This is where Deschutes is, and it's awesome.
It's on my list. It's on my list to visit.
Nice.
Definitely have some good beers when
Absolutely.
You're here.
Let us know.
So if you had one message, if someone was like, if you were if your podcast conversation came up, you're in an elevator and someone's like, well, okay, like podcasting, I get it takes a lot of time, but like, what's the real power of podcasting? like for businesses? Like, what is that one message like that you would hit someone with to kind of inspire them?
I would talk about what I had said before with just having your voice being pumped directly into your customers' ears. There's really no great substitute for that I've been able to find. It's really, really powerful to have your message every week being put directly into their ears, where you're building trust and able to really showcase what you know as part of your subject matter expertise.
Nice, man. Couldn't agree more. Well, we're really happy that we got to have this quick conversation with you. I think we could definitely go all day long with other topics, but this is kind of where we start to wrap things up. Tim, if someone wanted to follow your podcast, if they had questions about maybe an app that they might be coming out with, they want to follow your running experiences, where can everybody find you and kind of start following you and get some more information?
I'd say the best place to start is just our company's website. You can find it at jmg.mn, and just give me a shout there, and I'm happy to talk running, beer. We didn't even talk Super Smash Brothers, but I'm happy to talk that as well.
Cool, man. Well, thanks, Tim. Thank you so much. We're really stoked to have you on, and hopefully, down the road we could catch up, have another episode. Maybe when you come to Bend, we could do one in person. That would be
over some
cool.
beers.
Over some beers.
Yes, I can't believe it's been a half hour. That went fast. That was great.
That did.
Crazy. Well, thanks, Tim. And if you haven't yet, please subscribe to the Biz Bros podcast. Check out our website, bizbros.io. Go to Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Look up the Biz Bros podcast. Follow us there. And we look really forward to seeing you on the next Biz Bros podcast episode. We'll see you soon.